Okay, welcome to the Career Catapult, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about something that I hear quite often, something I've personally experienced myself, and I've heard quite a bit with our clients. And that is the feeling that you get after an internal promotion, the feeling you get after you've been promoted internally. Have you ever landed an internal promotion that you worked really hard for? Okay, you worked so hard for this promotion, and only to find out that once it became official, once you saw the internal announcement or you got the offer or whatever it was, you were somewhat underwhelmed. The feeling that you imagined you didn't feel. You didn't feel the goosebumps that you thought you would feel. Your heart didn't race or it didn't skip a beat the way that you thought it might, and you kind of wonder why. Has anybody ever experienced that? I know I have. I know I have a couple of times. And it's not because something changed. It's not because you stopped wanting the promotion. It's not because your comp didn't go up. Maybe, in fact, your comp did go up substantially, and yet you don't feel any different than you did the day before, than you did before you saw the announcement. Okay. And I want to talk with you about why that might be happening. Today's topic is why your internal promotion to senior director, VP, or the C suite will feel underwhelming. Why it will feel underwhelming, especially compared to an external promotion. I mean, we help our clients do both, okay? All day, every day, internal, external. And depending on the year, it's usually like 40-60, right? 40% internal, 60% external. Sometimes it's been half. But nonetheless, we find that people report feelings of excitement and euphoria and, all the things with the external. With the internal, not as much, not as much. And I want to share with you why that is happening, why that may be happening. Again, it has nothing to do with the size of the comp increase or whether something changed for them or whether they stopped wanting the goal. No, they usually still want it. They're not turning down the job, but something is happening that is leading them to feel underwhelmed. And I want to tell you what that is. I'm going to get right to it. Okay. The one single reason why people don't report this euphoric feeling after an internal promotion is because by the time you officially land the job, by the time that internal announcement goes out, by the time the offer letter goes out, you would have already been operating at that level. You would have already been doing that job for about 6 to 12 months. Okay. For about 6 to 12 months, you would have already been doing that job, which is why by the time that offer goes out or the announcement goes out, that flipping of that switch where your title is changed and your comp is changed will not feel the way that you initially imagined when you set the goal. And it's important for you to know that, because if you don't, you'll think that there's something wrong. You'll think that maybe you just don't want it anymore. Maybe, corporate isn't for you and blah, 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 all the things, right? But this is true here's the thing, when landing a goal, any goal at all, okay? When landing a goal that is big requires a transformation of yourself, this will happen. Any goal that you achieve that is big enough such that it requires you to transform who you are, transform how you're communicating, transform your mindset and your ability to build relationships and all of that, like you are essentially reinventing yourself to step into that new level. By the time you officially get that new level, it will not feel quite as euphoric. It will not feel quite as exciting because you've already been operating at that level. It will feel like, duh. That's what it's going to feel like. Duh, right? And you know that you've had promotions where you felt that way, okay? Everybody else is like, oh, congratulations, right? You did it. And of course, on some level, you feel like, yes, I did it, right? But you will still, predominantly, the feeling will be, of course I did. Of course I did, because I've already been doing the job. So of course this title and this comp change makes all the sense in the world, right? And again, because you've already been operating at that level for 6 to 12 months. So that is why you may feel underwhelmed. I was talking to one of my private clients. I work with leaders across multiple different industries and functions, some of them privately. And I was working with this gentleman who recently became chief technology officer after his boss retired. Okay. And by the time this announcement went out, he had already been pretty much running the show, pretty much running the function for the last 6 months, right? He had already been doing this for the last like 6 to 8 months. Okay. So what was he doing? What were some of the things that he was doing without the title that made this promotion to CTO somewhat underwhelming. Well, he was already representing the function in board presentations. He was already conversant. He was already that was a norm for him to be in the board meetings representing his function. He already was owning the technology roadmap for 12 to 24 months. He was already owning that, which is in part the role of a CTO. He was already doing that, okay? He was accountable for major vendor negotiations, okay? Any major renewals on contracts, any major vendor negotiations, he was accountable for. He owned those relationships, okay? He was defending capital expenditures, CapEx, to the CFO, okay, for his function, for the business, oftentimes needing to sort of lobby and negotiate and influence with other functions, fighting off other C-suite leaders in product and, in sales and ops for the same dollars, okay? So he was already doing that even without the title. He was the face of all of the executive communication when there were incidents, major cybersecurity breaches. He was already the face, the name, the one throat to choke kind of thing, right? He was that person already. Okay. And of course, from a hiring standpoint, he was not only hiring at his level, hiring below him, but also being consulted, being part of the hiring panel for other C-suite leaders and other functions. Can you see that by the time he was awarded this title, he was already doing the job for months? Okay. I share this with you, and this is not unique. This is pretty much every time someone gets a promotion, this is what happens. By the time the promotion comes, the job will already feel like second nature because you would already have been doing it. Okay. And so, yeah, he was already really the de facto CTO. Title and comp just caught up to where he already was, right? It caught up to where he was. And the thing is that most people have it flipped. They expect the title and comp to come, and then they will operate at that level. They expect to just do what's on their job description for their current job, for their current level, and do that expertly well, and do that extremely well, right? And then that's what will then land them the promotion. I've said this till I'm blue in the face, right? And I'll say it over and over and over again in pretty much every episode. You cannot do that. If your goal is to land a skip level promotion to vice president, you're not going to get to be a vice president by being a really good senior director, by being a really good director. You have to figure out how to do a VP's job. You have to figure out how to be a solid VP to signal that potential to your organization, right? Your company is not going to take a chance. I'm not going to just bet like, well, let's see, let's give this person a shot, right? They used to do that. They don't do that anymore, not in any mass quantity, right? Certainly not something to hinge your whole career on, not something for you to base your entire career development on. You have to figure out how to get in there, how to do that job before you have the title, okay? If you expect that doing your current JD, current work expertly well is what's going to land you the promotion to the next level, especially at the executive ranks, it will not. So if you're going to be promoted to senior director, to VP, or to the C-suite, you can't wait until you have the crown. You can't wait till you've been crowned to behave differently. You're going to have to figure out how to speak when no one has asked you anything. Many of you are still doing that, like you're on mute the whole meeting until someone calls your name. Do we have anybody from marketing in the room? And you're like, unmute. Yes, such, you give the update and then you go back on mute and you wait till somebody calls you again. Well, you're not getting promoted that way. If that is your default way of showing up in meetings, that's your default way of showing up in the room, you're not getting a promotion, right? You will have to figure out how to speak before you're asked. And of course, you might say, well, Stella, I'm already doing that. I am already speaking before being asked. In what rooms? In what rooms are you doing that? And are you doing that at the level, right? If you're currently a director who wants to be vice president, when you are in a room with just vice presidents, when you are in a room with C-suite leaders, how is your demeanor then? How is your presence then versus when you are in a room with directors and managers? That's the difference. That's what we're talking about, okay? You're going to have to figure out how to own certain outcomes before they're ever assigned to you. They may never be assigned to you. You're going to have to figure out how to own outcomes, not just tasks. One of the questions I ask in our application for our program is I ask people, what's the most impressive thing you delivered in the last 12 months? What's the thing you think is impressive? Forget what anybody else thinks. What do you think is the most impressive result, quantifiable result that you delivered? And I want to say like 90% of the time, most people give me tasks. They give me tasks. They list a bunch of tasks that they've done, right? And you're going to have to figure out how to own outcomes, okay? You're going to figure out how to own outcomes before they're ever assigned to you. That's really important. You might say, well, I already own some outcomes. Great. What's the next level? And are you owning those? Okay. You have to figure out how to own risk before you're comfortable. This is a huge one. I teach this one in depth inside our program. We have an entire training on this, where a lot of people are so risk averse, not just in their own personal career moves and their own personal career decisions, but even in the way they navigate themselves in their organization. I'll give you an example. Okay. I was up for a certain promotion in my career. And one of the things that I know for sure unlocked that promotion was me being able to put a multi-year strategy with quantifiable numbers. I didn't know how those numbers would come to be, okay, or that they would at all. But I had to be willing to take the risk and say, we are going to deliver X. Many of you are waiting until you have certainty. You're waiting until the market is stable. I had no idea what would happen to raw material prices. I had no idea that we would take increases. I had no idea that, all of our metals would shoot up the following quarter after I said that. Right? You have to be willing to go first. You have to be willing to own risk at the appropriate level. If you're waiting for things to be done and dusted before you ever communicate them, before you ever publicize them, that is one of the things that's standing in the way. Your organization is looking for people to go first, to stand out, to say, this is what we're going to do. This is the line in the sand. This is the goal we're going to deliver. This is our North Star for this group, for this function, for this team. You're not doing that enough. You're not doing that enough. You are playing it safe. You're waiting till you have all the answers. You're waiting to speak once it's been done. You're waiting to publicize it once the deal's already completed and you've placed your first order. And that's why the promotion isn't happening, right? You have to own risk. There's nothing but uncertainty today. And it's been that way for decades, right? So if you're sitting there waiting for this perfect picture, you're gonna be waiting a long time. You have to figure out how to influence peers who don't report to you. You have to figure out how to influence people. You can't do this alone. When I'm talking about, being able to carve out work that is at the next level and signal that, how are you going to do that? How are you going to let somebody let you do that? You have to figure out how to influence people, peers, leaders above you who don't report to you, don't have to listen to you. You have no authority over them. If you're not figuring out how to get better and stronger in that area, you are underprepared. For one, you won't land the job. For two, even if you did, how are you going to do it? How will you do it? You can't always rely on your authority. That's important to have authority, but without it, you still have to get things done. Part of that is being able to influence people, okay? Get them to say yes, even when they don't work for you. Okay, such an important skill that you have to be cultivating at the right level. You have to figure out how to protect enterprise value, not just your function. Enterprise value, not just your function. Okay, many of you are still thinking like functional experts. I covered this in our boot camp. By the way, if you attended our boot camp most recently, you know that we talked about this one in depth. Okay, you have a function, yes, but you have to be thinking about the entire organization, the entire enterprise. There's an example I like to share, that I had to deal with quite a bit in my career. My role in the organization was to deliver cost savings for the organization. That was the entire purpose of my team being there, okay? And yet there were times where even though there was significant cost savings opportunity, I would have to say no. One time a team member of mine came with $1 million cost savings opportunity. It's not every day that those come around, okay? And I had to say no, even though we probably could have done it. I probably could have fought for it. I probably could have pushed PD and pushed the engineering and pushed our sales organization and pushed the plant to pilot it and do all the things. I said no. And I said no because the total cost, both in terms of, the total cost to actually approve this thing and the risk, the cost to, the potential loss of that business, that raw material was part of a major product with a major customer where we had that exclusivity. If that customer had to open that up, okay, to test this new, because of course, when you approve any raw materials on our side, they have to approve it on their side. If they're going to approve it, they might as well bring in 5 of our competitors. We're going to lose that business, right? And this has been a bit of a gravy train for us for a minute. So, it's enterprise value. I can't just say, well, because of $1 million, which would benefit me, certainly I'd get a bigger bonus, right? My team member would be happy with me. But now I've had to figure out how to think about the enterprise value, right? Deal with the potential sort of political fallout from my direct report, who's my right-hand person. All of that is what we're talking about here, right? Where are you not protecting the enterprise value? You're not maximizing the enterprise value because you are thinking tunnel vision just about yourself, just about your function, just about your product, just about your team, just about your region, just about your industry, right? This can go as big and as broad depending on your level, right? So these are some of the behaviors. These are some of the things that would have to be done, and not just done one time, but consistently enough. Here's the thing. You have to do this consistently enough that your absence would be a risk to your organization. Let that sink in. You have to be known for this. That's why our internal track is, you can't do our internal program in 90 days. I can't tell people, I can tell you how to be promoted, but it takes time. We have to implement this with you, because you have to create this brand consistently to where your organization's like, that's who that person is. It would be a risk to lose that person. This is the value they're delivering, right? And it's at the next level. That consistency is required. Most people don't do this at all. The ones who do, most of them do it one time and expect that to be the thing that carries them over. No, you need to be consistent. You need to be consistent, because that's what makes your promotion obvious. Makes it obvious. I talk about being the obvious choice. That's where those words come from. This is what makes it obvious. And here's the thing, listen, you're going to go to work anyway, okay? You're going to go to work anyway. You're going to sit at your desk, proverbially, right? Your desk for 8 to 12 hours a day, depending on your schedule. All right. You're going to be in those meetings, attending those meetings anyway. You're going to be in the room anyway. You're going to be on the call anyway. You're going to work hard anyway. You're going to burn the midnight oil anyway. You're going to do all these things anyway. You might as well. The real question is, are you going to use that time to reinforce your current level, right? Or are you going to use that time to make your next level inevitable? You're spending the same energy, the same amount of resources. What are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? If you want this promotion, you're going to have to act like it. You're going to have to act like the level consistently enough. And when you do that, the title, the comp will follow. And because you've already been acting at that level, it will seem underwhelming. It will seem like I've been doing this. But that's the real win, actually. When you really think about it, that's the real win. That's your new level. That's your new level. Comp and title, those will change as you move, but that self that you had to become to do this, that's the part of you that's the real win, and that's the part of you that I'm celebrating and cheering on, and nodding along with, because that's the part of you, that's the thing that no one can take from you. Okay, so hopefully this has been helpful for those of you who have had an internal promotion that did not feel as exciting. This may have been what was happening underneath or behind the scenes. Those of you who are on your path to your next internal promotion, now you'll know what to look for. Now for one, you know what to do to make it happen. And then two, you'll know that even after you've worked hard, even after you've achieved it, you may not feel the goosebumps, you may not feel the heart, skipping, but that doesn't mean you haven't done well. It doesn't mean that you're doing the wrong thing. No, you are doing the exact right thing, and that's why it feels that way. Thanks for listening. Share this with someone who is working on their promotion, or someone who has landed a promotion and has shared with you that she's not sure, if she's doing the right thing. This may be the episode that changes everything for her. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.